Hello and welcome to ReginaldESQ. I'm Underhook and this is the next in my series looking at the armor changes in patch 9.12. Today we're looking at the AMX 12T, the little French autoloader. Now this tank has lost a bit of its luster over recent times because there are now so many autoloaders in the game that this tank really isn't special anymore. And it does, have, well, compared to some of the other autoloaders out there, it's probably not that good anymore. So I was interested to see what kind of changes they did to the armor. I thought, well, maybe they're giving the armor a buff. Now, on the right-hand side of your screen here, you can see the pre-recorded version of Tank Inspector, and on the left-hand side of your screen here is the current live version of 9.12 Tank Inspector. Now, you'll see the tanks look out of dimension with each other, or out of proportion. That's pretty much solely due to my pre-recording process, and they are actually reasonably in proportion with each other. So pay no attention to that. I'll start the pre-recording on the right. We'll go to a colorized view and move the tanks into a frontal view, and straight away you can see major changes to the armor of this tank. But they haven't buffed it. They've majorly nerfed the armor. Not that it had a lot of armor, but now it effectively has, well, almost no armor at all. So when you used to bounce the odd shot off auto loaders, like the little low tier multi-cannons, you won't be doing that anymore. So I would say this tank is now very vulnerable to low tier multi-cannons and things like that. And yeah, it's a bit sad really for a tank that needed a buff. It's received a major nerf. So we can see here that the whole sort of lower frontal section of the tank was 50mm, which wasn't great, but like I say, could protect you a little bit against some of those lower tier tanks and some of those tanks perhaps firing HE at you. Now you've got this section here, which is still 50mm, that thin section there on the front. Underneath that, it's 30mm, and above that, yep, it's also 30mm. This band here is 20mm, and if we just keep the recording going until we get to that upper section here, so that upper section of the plate there was 40mm, that's now 15mm. So 40 down to 15 is a big deal. I mean, even a tier 1 or 2 tank would be dangerous. Not that you meet them, but yeah, the armor is truly terrible. Artillery landing within splash radius is going to devastate this tank. Yeah, anyway, doesn't look good for this tank. So moving on to the turret, yes, 40mm it used to be. Well, this lower section here is 30mm now. This little bit sort of underneath of the turret, which is a bit weird, is 40mm. As you can see, pretty much the whole turret previously was 40mm. So now we've got this sort of slope section here, which is 20mm. The actual mantlet area, it hasn't really got a mantlet, but that's 30mm. So that's all reduced. This section up here is also 30mm. This cupola area, let's call it, because before it was the armored area in the lower portion, which was 40mm, and then just the cupola at the top. Now, previously that cupola section was only 10mm, so I guess you could say the top of the cupola at 20mm is now thicker, but the rest of it at 20 instead of 40 is obviously a nerf. And yeah, so severely reduced the armor on the front of the tank. Let's have a look at the side of the tank. Side of the tank actually is not really much changes. 20mm, the tracks still provide 15mm. It's only these sort of little sections here are reduced from 40 to 30. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. Moving on to the rear of the tank, the rear armor is 15mm, as it always was. Interestingly, this, if I can get this to go back a little bit, it's not going to make any difference, but you can see here that red section, which is pretty much the underneath of the turret, was 40mm, and now it's 10mm. Let's have a look. The back of the turret was 20, is still 20, so it's not really going to make any difference there. And the top of the tank was 10mm pretty much all around, and it still is 10mm all around. So mainly it's the front of the tank that's had a severe nerf. And I don't know what you guys think, but I think this tank probably needed a buff because the gun is pretty hard to use on this tank. It bounces around a lot and it doesn't have much elevation or much depression, like a lot of the other autoloaders out there do. So yeah, it's pretty vulnerable. So I don't know. Anyway, if you like this little tank armour review, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more armour reviews or indeed tank reviews, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Have fun.